Welcome to Loading the Bar with physical training experts Parker McBride and Matt Wasco. Our Fit Lifestyle podcast covers the science of nutrition and fitness, together with the challenges we all face to be disciplined. We'll guide you through the minefields of fads and gimmicks and all manner of BS that tempt us in today's fitness world. Ready to begin? Then let's start loading the bar.
Welcome back, everybody, to the Loading the Bar podcast. Parker McBride here, joined as always by Matt Wasco. And if you are viewing us on YouTube or by video, you will see we're in a little bit different of a setting today.
Yeah, we're trying something out different. We happened to see this layout, and we're like, that's kind of cool. So we thought we'd give it a whirl and see how it goes, and it might work well with guests. So
a little more laid back. The chair is a little more comfortable. I got some padding.
Yeah. We're not used to that, that's for sure.
Yeah. Well, Matt, how's it going today?
Well, I had a late night, and I'm not used to late nights.
Yeah.
I was sitting next to a friend of both of ours, Elisa, and we were both talking about this is way past our bedtime. And as all the young folk around us were having a good time, we were like, I'm ready to go to bed.
Yeah.
So I got home, it must have been 12:30 or 1 in the morning.
That is a late night.
Celebrating another friend's birthday that we both know.
Yeah.
And so we had a nice time, went out to a restaurant called the Town Company, just downtown. And then we went to some Afterlife bar, which was much too young for me. And we were there pretty late. So
Well, that's fun.
unusual for me to do that because I don't stay out that late.
Yeah, I'm not much for staying up late either. 9 o'clock, even 10 o'clock 10 o'clock's pushing it.
Yeah, I was scraping the sleep out of my eyes this morning. I was more tired this morning than I usually am. So,
Yeah.
But we make sacrifices for our friends. It was really fun hanging out with a lot of our good friends, and I'm sure we'll be seeing a lot more of them.
Well, good. So we're going to start off here with our Fit Focus, as we normally do. And I saw a article this week, and it prompted me to do a little more research, but I ended up coming back to the original article. So the article headline reads, "Vegetable oil or animal fat oil, which is more conducive to cardiovascular health among the elderly in China." Now, when I first saw this article, as I was reading it, I thought, oh, this is a fantastic study to review. And then I read the last two words, in China, and I thought to myself, well, dang, I would rather know about in America. So it prompted me to do some research and see what studies I could find that looked at the relationship between vegetable oil and animal fat in the United States, and you can't really find very many.
No, not easily.
So I came back to this one and kind of started diving into it, and I figured, even in China, the effects that they find are probably going to be similar to Americans as well. But I found this as an extremely, extremely interesting study that they've done.
Yeah, I mean, in reviewing it affirms a lot of things we already knew.
It does. I didn't know what conclusion it would have from the outset, but they looked at, so basically, China's not that much different than the United States in that they talk about how cardiovascular disease is the leading cause of death in China, and there were some various Chinese organizations that wanted to study the effects of the cooking oils because they noticed that over the past 20 years or so, vegetable oils, and that includes canola oil and soybean oil and some various ones of those, became a lot more used than animal fats like lard and tallow and things like that. And they wondered if it had an effect. And so they actually funded this study to be done by Duke University. on elderly people in China. So they had about 16,000 elderly Chinese people over 65 that were included in the study. I looked at some of the other demographics. They didn't really discriminate. It was a lot of men and women, different habits, different sizes, shapes, everything.
Different regions too.
Yeah, all throughout China, rural, city, all different types of stuff. And they found that it was about 11 to 12 years of time that the people were using these oils as cooking oil. So whichever habit that they had, whether it was the animal fats or the seed oils, they've been doing it for a very prolonged period of time. And let me see if I can find the percentages here, because they concluded, I think it was about 30% of the individuals who consumed seed oils mainly as their cooking oil developed cardiovascular disease, and it was about 17% of the individuals who used animal fats that developed cardiovascular disease. So they found a significant difference.
I noticed another aspect. You were talking about different people for varying different lifestyles. They did measure some of these people's lifestyles. They measured their marital status, their household income, which does play a role. Obviously, the more money you have, you tend to, if you have the ability to eat cleaner. The smoking status, the drinking status, and a big one, exercise status. Mm-hmm. So, ironically, the people, and this is interesting. So those who had the vegetable oil, 69% roughly were not exercising, and 31 were. Now flip that over to the animal fat. Now you have 80% and 20%.
Well, 80% were not exercising.
Correct.
So, when we look at this, we see that the people that were using the seed oils were more likely to be exercising, were more likely to be taking a little bit better care of their health. You go to the drinking status, a higher percentage of the people consuming animal fats were drinking than the people consuming seed oils. A higher percentage of them were smoking.
Which is actually helps prove how bad seed oils or vegetable oils are.
Exactly.
That's actually like drives the hammer in or the nail in the coffin on this, because the people that are not, that are using the animal fat aren't living as healthy as lives as far as their exercise and drinking status. And is it their smoking status too?
Yeah, smoking too.
And smoking status too. So it's like they should not be as healthy.
No, you would think they wouldn't be.
Right.
And the seed oil that they were, when specifically talking about cardiovascular disease, they had a lower incidence of cardiovascular disease, even with those unhealthy habits. And same thing with stroke. I noticed that the purpose of the study was for cardiovascular disease, but it also talked about stroke. They studied strokes as well, and the instance of strokes was significantly higher in those using seed oils.
Yeah.
And I also noticed that the instance of hypertension, so high blood pressure, was higher in those using seed oils, 43% compared to 31% in the animal fats. Type 2 diabetes, 10% in the seed oil users versus 5% in the animal fats. High cholesterol. This was the really interesting one, because they tell us over and over that it's the animal fats that are going to cause us to have high cholesterol.
Right.
Those using seed oils, 6%. Those using animal fats, 1%.
Wow.
Right? So that's almost 6 times more instance of high cholesterol in people using seed oils instead of animal fats.
And then I'm looking at obesity. Let's see here. Or I should say abdominal obesity was higher amongst those that did the vegetable oils.
Yes, but then they also have a category for non-abdominal obesity, which was higher in the individuals who consume the animal fats.
Yes.
So that's an interesting thing to see here, because that tends to suggest that the seed oils is what causes us to be more likely to put on belly fat around our
Right.
abdomen.
Yeah, I mean I think it's gets in the tissues and inflames them and inflammatories. So for sure, I mean I'm just there. This is a quite extensive study.
It is, and there's no way we could have time to go through all of the details on this podcast as we just kind of do a quick dive into it. But it is fascinating, and it's worth.
Well,
It's
the
definitely
type
worth
two
reviewing.
the type 2 diabetes is interesting. 10.5% amongst vegetable oil, 5% or just under 5% for animal fats. Huh.
Yeah. So, all else equal, if you have a higher instance of type 2 diabetes when using seed oils for cooking versus animal fats, one has to wonder, do seed oils have an effect on type 2 diabetes? And there are definitely individuals out there that both of us have listened to who seem to think that seed oils can be a significant risk factor in developing type 2 diabetes.
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. As you were talking, I'm sitting here just reading this, going, "Holy crap! This is." So they do have on here, and I just didn't get far enough down. They do have here types of staple food that these people ate. Amongst the vegetable oil, rice was 55.5%, and then amongst the animal fat, it was 88%.
It is very interesting. So we get down towards the bottom. They have their conclusion. They also have a discussion that goes a little bit more in depth, and it's very simple. They say our study found that participants who cooked with vegetable oil had a higher risk of ASCVD, which is their moniker for heart disease, compared with participants who use other animal fats. In addition, participants without type 2 diabetes had a higher risk of heart disease than those with diabetes, which that we understand. It correlates. So, having one disease like a type 2 diabetes is going to increase your likelihood of getting other diseases as well.
So that kind of begs the question, what's America up to?
Yeah.
What are these food companies up to? I mean, you have to dig to find the studies that are done in America sometimes, or find this kind of information.
Well, you can't really find it. This was a study done by Duke University and funded by some Chinese health organizations. And there are people that have attempted to do studies like this, but it's not easily to find. I did some digging. I did some research. You're not finding mainstream studies out there that are done by universities, done by, professionals, whatever the constraints are that they used, that are studied on this. You don't find one way or the other. They don't exist.
Well, and it's permeated our education system. I mean, the opposite of this. My daughter came home about a month ago and started my teacher says that red meat's bad for you. And I said, well, is she vegan? She goes, yeah. And so I sat down with her and had a kind of come into Jesus meeting and just said, honey, let's talk this through. And after about 45 minutes talking to her, she goes, oh, I'm convinced red meat's good for you. I was like, yes. So now she's on this health kick. I mean, she's really been eating healthy.
Well, kids are very impressionable.
Yeah.
You can, the younger they are, the more impressionable they are. I mean, you can get kids to believe in almost anything. And so by, the education system telling these things to them at a young age, it gets them believing that. And then a lot of times they go throughout their life into adulthood just believing it because they haven't been told otherwise. And that's why, there is a little bit of a process. I mean, this applies to everything, but specifically to nutrition, a lot of times there's a process of unlearning some of what you've learned growing up and you thought to be true once you get out into your adult life and you're forced to, manage your own health.
I almost wanted to call the school and say, don't be pushing these ideas on my child. And that's where we talk about, when people have different diets, hey, you want to be a vegan, that's totally fine. But I find when people live that lifestyle, it's more of a virtue to eat vegan than it is an actual, what they think is healthy, because they're trying to say, oh, you shouldn't be eating that because red meat's bad for you. I've been stopped in a parking lot by someone who saw me purchasing meat, and they said, that's bad for you. You shouldn't be eating that meat, and went into this whole mantra of why meat's bad for you. This was about a year ago. So, it's like, as far as the levels of what's right and wrong, there seems to me that there is some, you can apply. I mean, truth is important. And when it comes to truth in what we can eat, I think that is those lines of, well, you do what you want to do and I'll do what I want to do. Those lines have been blurred, to what, telling people that, these oils are fine, these processed foods are fine. They say healthy on them. I think there is a real crime, and I'll call it that. I'll call it a crime going on to what's been done to our population.
It's kind of manipulative. Like we do have that freedom to choose what we want to eat, right? But when there's a manipulation in the grocery stores, like you said, in the marketing, where everything is saying this is healthy, the professionals, the scientists, the government, whatever the authority is that is putting it out, these authorities are putting out and telling us what is healthy and what isn't, and it's not necessarily true.
Well, and I think we keep watering down what this messaging is. We go, well, that's not exactly true, or it might be true for this person or whatever. No, it's a flat out lie. And I think we have to start calling it those things. These are lies.
Well, and in this study, it did talk about it a little bit. It talked about how over the last 20 years or so, even more than that, it's probably been 30, 40, 50 years, that seed oils have become much more prevalent as a replacement for animal fats, right?
Right.
Animal fats are bad. You should eat these. You should use these seed oils instead. And people start saying, okay, right, I believe you, whatever studies put out, whatever. I believe you. I'll start using them. And now we have data to show that people are less healthy whenever they use those than when they use animal fats. So why did we ever switch to them to begin with? If it was an experiment to see if it was healthier, we've now determined that it's not. And so why haven't they been taken out of our food supply as a recommended consumption?
Yeah. I heard this term recently, and I'm going to try to connect the dots. I don't know if this will make sense or not, but you've heard the word tradition, right?
Yes.
Well, tradition is basically the absence of error. Okay, so that means experiments have been done throughout time that have been, like the family would be called the family. You could call the family an experiment, and good positive results have come from the family nucleus, right? And so that is traditional, right? Tradition is usually, it weeds out error because over time, what doesn't work, you don't keep in what's practiced over time. So that's why it's called tradition. So tradition is supposed to be, as time goes on, the absence of error. Error has been weeded out. Okay, now connect that with what we've been eating for thousands of years, right? And suddenly in the 20th century, all these processed foods, like the frog in the pot syndrome, little by little been introduced into it's like, well, we're replace this and replace that. And, it's like, you think, well, a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Well, what has gone crazy in the last 100 years, maybe more in the last 50 years, is cancer. I mean, all types of things you didn't see over 100 years ago. So, you could say, well, it's not, it's just, these are alternatives, but over time, it has replaced a whole array of our food. Our soils are not as good. We have processed foods in every aisle. We have, you go down the chips aisle, it's all made with seed oils. And so now the natural food is the hard food to get. You either have to go to a special grocery store and still read the ingredients. You have to go to maybe a supplement store and still read the ingredients, because not all of them are still good for you, or you go to a farm fresh farmer's market. It's really, what the point is what has traditionally worked for the human body should have never been messed with in the first place.
Yeah, we're kind of taught that change is always better, and that newer technologies, newer invented things are always better than the old things. And maybe we're finding out that going back to tradition, like you said, and the things that have always worked are actually better. You brought up cancer right there. This study specifically dove into heart disease and diabetes. Last week, we talked about Alzheimer's and neurodegeneration. You take those four right there, and that is responsible for a vast majority of the deaths, not only in this country, but in the world.
Right.
And you have to ask yourself, you talked about 100 years ago and not having cancer. We also didn't have heart disease 100 years ago, at least not in a high prevalence. We also didn't have diabetes 100 years ago. We also didn't have Alzheimer's that prevalent 100 years ago, right? So all of our leading causes of death in this world are from causes that have sort of come upon the scene in prevalence in the last 50 or 100 years. We have to ask ourselves, first of all, why are these things increasing? How are these things increasing? What is causing it? And then if we can figure that out, don't we need to take that out of our society, whatever's causing it, and change it? Shouldn't that be our number one priority in order to preserve our health and preserve our lives? Yet it's not seen. It doesn't really seem like a priority, right? When people get diabetes, the answer is give them some medication and just send them on their way.
Well, the whole system is cyclical, meaning it's like you have bad food, and the reason they make the food that way is that it can sit longer on the shelf, so it doesn't go bad as quickly. So they saves the food production money, or the food producer money, and then this food gets into the population, and it causes poor health, and then you make money on the poor health, insurance, hospitals, and then not only that, they don't fix the problem. They give you a Band-Aid for the problem, which means you're still forking out money to stay alive, and not just to put a Band-Aid in, like, perpetually. So the whole system is set up in this, and you still continue to eat poor as you have this disease or ailment that's being caused by all this poor nutrition, and this cycle just continues. I mean, it's just, why would they want to fix it? They don't. It's like, that's why you as an individual have to take ownership of your health, and it has to be. I mean, your health is, as far as value in the world, as far as your, outside of your relationship with God, your relationship with your family, your health is paramount, and, you need to be thinking about, unfortunately, I'm very thankful. My daughter is like really conscious of everything she's putting in her body, and she's only 17, much more than the rest of my kids. And I think that's because, she's been around me in the last, 4 to 5 years, where nutrition's become even more and more important in my life. So, yeah, I mean, it's a frustrating culture that we live in, and you know, it should keep us busy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that was quite the interesting study. I'm glad that I found that, and it kind of segues well into our topic today.
Yeah.
So, we just talked about how terrible seed oils are, and not just seed oils, but there's a lot of other things that we've talked about over the years, or over our episodes that are terrible for you that you guys should be taking out of your diet. And the hard part is we take it all out. We take out all the processed foods. We take out all the bad things. What does that leave us? And I know we're a big proponent of protein, eating a lot of red meat, eating eggs, all the basics, but that gets boring, right? And one of the things that I thought about a couple podcasts back when we had Jamie and Liz on, and Jamie was talking about her passion for cooking and finding recipes and different substitutions for the unhealthy foods that are going to be really healthy. And so I thought Matt and I could share some of our best tips and habits and recipes and things for the healthy versions, or the healthy way to still enjoy your diet and it not be so boring.
Well, I think, well, by the way, if Jamie's listening to this podcast, she still owes me a recipe.
Ooh.
Yeah. So she made a promise to me after that episode. She'd send me the recipe for, I can't remember what it was, but it sounded fantastic. And so hopefully she's listening, and I'll probably reach out to her here at some point. But as far as my, you'd come up with this ideal for the show, and my ideas, because I do cook for myself. I cook for, I'm very busy, so I cook for expediency and efficiency. And so my palate is not varied, except for the spices I put in my meats and my dairy. So it's very, I would say my ideas would be for mostly males, because they usually don't need a lot of variety. So I just condition that.
Well, that is true. And we've also talked about how I'm very similar in that I can eat very basic and be fine with it. Luckily, I do have a wife that thinks a little bit differently and likes that variety and likes that mixing it up. And I did have to consult her considerably on this issue. And there's quite a few little things that she's done and added into
I'm excited to hear them.
Eating routine. And I think they're going to be very helpful. So that's kind of what I wanted to share with you guys. And I wouldn't undersell yourself, Matt. I mean, sometimes it's simple things. Mm-hmm. It doesn't always have to be super complicated, but little things that people don't think about that work very well. So I'll kind of get us started here. One of my favorite things lately that I've been doing as kind of a sweet replacement, if you're looking for something sweet, is, well, first of all, Greek yogurt, mm-hmm. right, is the base. So I love Greek yogurt. It's very high in protein. It's very good for you. It's very natural. You can pick it up at the store. You can even make it yourself. My wife's been making Greek yogurt from the raw milk we get.
Now, are you able to measure the protein in that?
I don't know the exact protein, but anyway, so Greek yogurt on its own doesn't taste that great if you've ever just had plain Greek yogurt by itself. And you can buy things at the store that they've got stuff mixed in it to make it taste better, and that's usually full of sugar, and so it kind of defeats the purpose, right? But what I do, take Greek yogurt, right? I drizzle some honey on there, right?
Yeah.
So instead of having to put something that is artificial sugars in there, you're getting the natural sugars and the natural sweetener from the honey.
Right.
And then I take some sort of fruit, and it can be really any type of fruit that you prefer. Berries are typically what I go to, like strawberries or blueberries or something. Throw some of those in there as well with it. Mix it all up. An added thing that you can do as well is what my wife does sometimes is make, it's kind of like granola, but it's with oats. You drizzle some honey on the oats and you kind of bake them, and you've got sort of a crunchy, if you're looking for some crunch to it, throw some of those in there. And I'll tell you what, you mix that up and it's better than an ice cream sundae.
Oh, I that's what I have. I get the Nancy's yogurt from. You can't get it at Nature's Grocer. You have to get it at Sprouts.
Yeah.
And they have no. Is that right? That's one of the two. Anyway, it's 22 grams of protein per serving, and I can't remember if that's a half a cup or not. But anyway, and I'll throw a couple servings in there. 44 grams of protein. It's just plain. Drizzle the honey on there, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, you don't even need the other stuff. Just the honey alone is going to sweeten it up to where it tastes fantastic. But, you can absolutely add more to it as well.
There's something about the sour taste of the plain mixed with the little honey, that contrast is really tasty. I enjoy it a lot. So I used to not like Greek yogurt, but, did the honey trick and won me over.
Well, back in January when I was doing carnivore month, Greek yogurt is considered carnivore. You can have dairy products in there, but none of those other things are that I was talking about. So I was just eating it plain. And it wasn't the most enjoyable experience. I would eat it, but it wasn't my favorite to just
You're
have.
kind of like big chunk of water, big chunk of water.
Well, it just is not. It doesn't have that satisfying sweetness that a lot of people look for, and there's nothing wrong with that sweetness and that desire to have something sweet. We just don't want to do it with processed sugar, and we want to do it with healthier natural things.
Yeah but that's a good sweet, and that's kind of what I keep around the house is Nancy's yogurt, because it's the highest protein one I've found that's really clean.
Or Fage is a fantastic brand too.
Fage, I haven't seen that one.
Fage.
Fage. Where did you find that?
I can get it at Costco or any grocery store, really. It's probably the most popular Greek yogurt brand.
Oh, well, how many grams of protein is it?
I don't remember exactly how many grams of protein it is, but it's pretty consistent. The way yogurt is made is basically just from milk. So it should be consistent among other brands what the protein content is. It shouldn't be very different based on the serving size.
Most Greek yogurts I found are anywhere from 16 to like 20.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's the most I've seen that are plain.
Yeah. Well, Matt, do you have a recipe for us?
Well, I'm going to give you my recipes are very simple, guys. So, when I'm in a hurry, and that's most of the time, I'm a big fan of ground hamburger, and there's a few different ways depending on my mood that I make it. One is I'll take we have these 1.5 pound sleeves, and I take it and then I take the masher and I smash it all down, and then I take kosher salt and I just kind of cover that top, and then I'll flip that and then cover it again on the other side, and then I smash it all up again, kind of like kneading it almost. And then there's a couple of ways to eat my hamburger. I'm not a fan of big hamburger patties. So I'll just throw all my hamburger in there, and then I'll just kind of keep smashing it up. It's like a little splitter. It has like 6 fins on it, and you're splitting it up I don't know what that's called. And then I just keep smashing. So the meat's like little chunks. I mean, you've seen how I eat it's not like hamburger that's, you get in a taco. It's like clumps of hamburger. And before I put it in the pan, I usually will follow it with some Italian seasoning on both sides. And it's really good. And then a lot of times, then I can either eat it straight, or sometimes I mix it in barbecue sauce. Another way I like my hamburger is more of a more recent invention. I'm always experimenting. I have all these different spices and I kind of play around, and sometimes I'm successful and sometimes I'm not. So I did I said, I want to try I like smash burgers. So I got a smasher, and I take these, same process, cover it in a little kosher, but then I coat it in a Cajun sauce or Cajun powder. And then I take it and the smasher, I smash the hamburger to it's like wafer thin, and then I throw it in there, and they're like, I usually make like 2-ounce balls, and I drop it in there, so it probably cooks up to 1.5 ounces, and then I create like 3 patties and put them on a burger, or just have patties off the plate, and that's fantastic. This Cajun sauce, now when you're eating it, you're like, your eyes are watering, and you're just like, woo, this is hot. And I don't cook it. I'm not going to cook it in the house anymore, because it absolutely makes the house. Everyone has to leave the house because the Cajun spice just fills the room, and everyone's going,
They're coughing, and
dying,
their eyes are watering.
They're watering,
and they didn't even eat any of it.
They haven't even eaten yet. And so the first time I made it, everyone left the house. They couldn't stay inside the house. It was so bad. But they were fantastic. And then I cook a lot of steak, and my recipe for steak is going to be French thyme, rosemary, kosher salt, and butter. And I mix those in there. I like that taste. It's really good. And I usually, what I'll do is I'll score the steak for 5 minutes on one side, 3 minutes on the other, stick it in the oven for about 8 minutes, get it to where it's just about medium rare, and it's fantastic. So those are some of my 3 steak recipes that are my go-tos.
So you sear your steaks before cooking them.
Yes.
That's interesting. I have been doing the reverse sear method.
Oh.
And I've been really liking that. So I have a pellet smoker where I will put the steaks on the grill at 250 to 300. It doesn't really matter that much, somewhere in that range. Let them slow cook up to temperature. I like mine medium rare as well. I'll take them off a little before medium rare, around like 120, 115. And meanwhile, I'll be heating up a cast iron pan and get the cast iron pan really, really, really hot, and put some butter in there so the butter's melted. And then once those steaks are up to temperature, I'll pull them off of the pellet smoker. I'll throw them in the cast iron pan, and I'll kind of keep pouring the butter over the top of them, and I'll let them go for minute or two on one side, and then a minute or two on the other side to get a nice good sear on them, and then I'll take them off. And that, I've loved that method for it. Seasonings, I typically just use salt and garlic powder.
Yeah.
I don't mix it up too much. I like the meat taste to come through a little bit.
Yeah, you're definitely the meat guy, or like that meat taste. I think that I use a cast iron as well, and when I put it in there, I've left it on the pan on there for a while, so it's given it a nice scorch on both sides, and I have the butter in there, and I'm just kind of coating it with butter. Yeah. I remember watching David Ramsey, how he did it, and you tip the pan
Gordon
up.
Ramsay?
What did I say?
David Ramsey.
Wrong Ramsey. Gordon Ramsay. But lift the pan up and just coat it with butter. And then once I've done both sides for 3 and 5 minutes, I put it in there for about 350 for about 8 to 9 minutes, and then let it sit on the stove for a little bit because it continues to cook. And then it's really good.
Well, and guys, we just looked over the study showing that the butter is a lot better for you than the seed oils.
It's good fat.
A lot of people may say, "Oh, you're coating your steaks in butter, you're gonna get heart disease," but we've actually found you're less likely to get heart disease.
Well, considering I'm trying to get even bigger now, I mean that's I've eating more butter. More butter, more bacon, and if I can stomach it, I'll have an avocado, but I'm not a big avocado guy. So
Yeah. That's a good segue to another thing I had on my list here. One of the struggles that I've heard a lot of people ask for is, what do I do for salad dressing? Right? Because almost all of the salad dressings are loaded up with seed oils, and they're terrible for you, to be quite honest. So you want to eat a salad, you think you're doing good, you put the dressing on it, and you've really made something that's worse than if you just had a steak or something, right? You know, and we could talk about, you really shouldn't be eating a salad for a meal if it doesn't have any meat on it anyway, but you shouldn't be having the traditional salad dressings. And so something that my wife has made is sort of an avocado ranch that has been really, really good, and I've really enjoyed it. And it doesn't actually have any ranch dressing in it. And I asked her what the recipe that she used, and she said it's mashed avocado, and then it is sour cream,
okay.
and then she put some garlic powder and dill in there, and it's got the dill gives a little bit of a kick, and it's fantastic. It's a little bit thicker than your standard salad dressings, but it is amazing. It's nice and creamy.
So you know the prerequisite to be on this show is you share the recipes, right?
Yes.
Okay. Good.
And I can get exact amounts for you, but you know, and you can kind of play with the amounts, kind of like you talked about earlier with experimentation. You know, this is all experimentation, guys. This isn't, you know, try stuff, see what you like, see what you find. You know, use the different ingredients, and this is something that she found that we've really enjoyed, and she makes some of it every time that we have any salad. And it even goes good on top of burgers. You know, it's another thing that we sometimes use it for, right? Because when we have burgers, we typically don't eat buns. Yeah. We don't want the bread. We'll get more into that later. But you also don't want ketchup on your burgers. A lot of people love to put ketchup on their burgers, right? So this is a kind of a creamy sauce that we can use. Still gives a sauce on top, but it's not unhealthy for you.
Reminds me, then there's times you go out and you don't, if you're going out with friends, and I'm thinking of last night, there was things on the table I didn't know what I was eating. Like I didn't know it was this, but one of the people at the table told me after I had some, it looked like potato chips, and it looks like funeral potatoes. You ever had those?
Yeah.
You know, sometimes people make them with potato chips. They put them on top to give them more crunch, you know. So I said, are these funeral potatoes? And I found out it wasn't. It was caviar and with potato chips and some type of sauce. And it was warm. And I was like, okay, I don't know what I'm eating, you know. So then it just makes me think of, like, we are very detailed about what we eat on a regular basis, and then you go out to dinner, and like there was things that I was like, oh, they had lobster toast, you know, with toast with lobster on it and chunks of lobster, and there was some different things last night, and there was a few things that were passed around, and I'm like, I don't know what I'm eating, but I'm eating it.
Well, that goes back to our 90-10 rule,
Yes.
right? 90% good, 10% bad. And that would, last night maybe it was one of your 10%.
My 10%.
It was one of my 10% too. So we went out to dinner too. So
one of the things that I pulled it up, I was making this during COVID. And it was my lemon chicken recipe. And I just remembered it. And fortunately it's still on my phone, because I would go and buy the ingredients. But I would I would use chicken on the bone, chicken breasts on the bone with the leg. And, I'd use garlic cloves, and I would try to get good heavy cream. So, because it's in a sauce, you know. And so, this would be on a night where you're getting lots of fat, shredded Parmesan, green onions, fresh parsley, and then lemon wedges. And I would mix up and I would do everything fresh. I want to buy all fresh vegetables and chopped them all up, and had a process that let these chicken breasts and sit in this lemon sauce. I also did where you take the the lemon grind or rind, and you shave off I forget, there's something that's called where you're actually shaving the actual outside of the lemon off of the outside of the rind, and you sprinkle the flakes on there, and it actually enhances the flavor even more. And I used to love making that. The problem with that is the preparation is so long. That's not something I could make. Like, if you guys were coming over to dinner, that's something I might make. But in my daily life, it's very, very simple.
Well, that brings up a really interesting point, is a lot of this stuff is a little more complicated and a little bit more effort than just stopping by the store and grabbing a prepared meal. Right? This isn't the most time efficient thing, but we talked about at the beginning, what is your health worth and where does it come in the line of priorities? And if there are other things getting in the way to the point where you say, I don't have time to do that, we got to just go out to eat, or I don't have time to do that, I'm picking up a pre-prepared meal, I don't have time to do a more made from scratch style of cooking, I'm just going to do pre-set, pre-made ingredients. That's okay, but understand that is putting your health at a low priority.
Right. And, there's been several times, I probably at least once or twice a week, I'm like thinking, boy, it'd be nice just to pop something in the microwave and go. But I don't do that. I just think, okay, I'm going to take the time, scramble the eggs, because it's priorities. Your health. What are your goals? And so yeah, I take the time and put in the effort, and then give it over with, and then you're eating the eggs. And for most people, that shouldn't be a problem. When you're, and I'm going to speak for myself, I'm eating probably at least 4 meals a day, sometimes 5. So I'm at the stove a lot. And, or I'm, one of those might be a shake. But I'm at the stove every single day, multiple times a day.
It's interesting you talk about shake. So that's another thing where most of the time, if you go get even if it's a protein shake at a nutrition store, a lot of times those are extremely unhealthy too. They're loaded with sugars and artificial ingredients and things, not just the whole natural foods. But you can make some really tasty smoothies for yourself with natural ingredients that come out fantastic. My wife made a smoothie yesterday, and I had to ask her what was in it, because I started drinking it, and it literally tasted like a peach cobbler. And I said, wow, what is this? Milk. Raw milk specifically.
Okay.
Peaches.
Okay.
And the peaches had some honey with them, and cinnamon.
That was it.
That was it.
Wow.
And I'm thinking, if it's this easy and this simple to get something this good, and it's all healthy ingredients.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you could do that. You could do different fruits and mix it up as well. And we've both tried many different smoothie recipes and have many good smoothie recipes, but there's a variety too in that you can get all different kinds of smoothie recipes. But when you are making smoothies, what I found, the base being milk, right?
Yeah.
If you want protein, this one wasn't a protein smoothie specifically, but you can add protein powder in.
Well, if it's raw milk, I think you're at 11 grams for a cup. Is that right?
It's close to that.
Yeah.
It's around there.
Yeah.
Somewhere. But then add some fruit in, and and then little things to add to alter the taste beyond that. But it's really pretty simple.
Yeah.
I don't know what you do with your smoothies, but
yeah, I throw protein in, a protein powder in there, and it's I'm trying to think. I can't remember the name of it. But I try to get a protein that's just plain. There's no vanilla or, stuff, sugars and mixed in with it. And, and then, I mix in mango. If I can get raw milk, I'll say when we do our show, I have trouble getting raw milk. So I wanted to ask you where you're getting your raw milk at. But when I have raw milk, I make it with raw milk. I don't make it with the store-bought milk. I'll just, if I don't have the raw milk, I'll make it with, almond milk, which still isn't that super great. But, I need some type of liquid, and I don't like the milk that you get at the store.
No. That does kind of segue me to another thing I wanted to talk about, which is the importance of buying local.
Yeah.
And buying in season, right? We've kind of gotten to this habit as a society where you can go to the grocery store and you can get anything at any time of year. So you just, if you want to have strawberries, you just go to the store and you buy strawberries. But, those strawberries have been grown who knows where, right? They've been shipped a long ways. They've been harvested before they're ripe. That way they can ripen during shipping. They've been, the varieties have been changed around to be more conducive for being able to ship for and sit for a long period of time. They've been changed to be much bigger and have much less of a taste, right? So you're not getting as good a quality of food, of strawberries in that case.
Well, that's true for the majority of our fruits.
Exactly. If not just fruits, but most of the foods.
Yeah.
Right? And because you were talking about milk. So buying local, you could buy strawberries, right? When strawberries are in season around here, or whatever fruit, blueberries. There's some fruits you can't get around here, right? But of all of them that you can go to a farm, or you can find a place where they have them and buy them in bulk, and you can preserve them, right? You could put them in the freezer. You could even, some of them you can, right? And then you have the homegrown, local, higher quality produce year round.
Yeah.
You don't have to just get it when it's in season. I know, farmers market season is really big, where everyone wants to go to the farmers markets and gets the fresh stuff. And that's coming up here as we get into the summer. There's going to be fresh tomatoes and fresh fruits all over the place. Easy to find. But then in the winter, you can't find them.
Well, we have I read recently that it's not just our the fruits and vegetables you buy in the store that are the problem. Now even at Farm Fresh, they grow them farm fresh, but the soils have been so overused that it's hard to get some flavor. Like, I remember when I was in my I've been alive long enough that when we used to travel out to Mississippi to my Aunt Irene's, and she had watermelons. And to this day, I have never tasted watermelons like that. Like, so flavorful. And she had the big O seeds in them. Now they make them without all the seeds. And they were so good. I mean, like, I remember when I would go out there, this was in the 80s, when I was a kid, and I'd go out there and I was like, watermelon was my number one favorite food. And watermelon's been one of those things, is by the time I got around, late 1990s and into 2000s, watermelon wasn't my favorite anymore. They didn't taste the same, and back in the 80s, even the watermelon Mom would bring home still had that really sweet, very flavorful, juicy watermelon. And now it's like, people bring me watermelon. If we buy watermelon, they just don't taste the same anymore. And, they're saying that about all fruits and vegetables. They don't have that same powerful taste they used to have. And so now these, you'll hear these farmer market farmers where they have to really take care of the soil and get it back to its original state. And it takes a lot of time. I don't know how many years have to go by to get the soil the way it used to be. I mean, you would know this. Don't, like, when you have cows, don't they fertilize the soil?
Yeah. So they're taking off the soil and that they're eating the forage, the grass, but then they're also replenishing by dropping manure.
Right.
And it's a cycle.
Yeah, and that was the beautiful cycle, and now you have to really take care of the soil these days to get back to because now the seeds have been changed. It's not just about, the soil too. It's the seeds that you get have been altered. So you have to even do your homework and find the seeds that are more original to what it's supposed to be.
Virtually none of the produce that you find in the supermarket is an actual real variety of produce. It is something that's been a hybrid that's been engineered together for a specific purpose,
which is
it's not naturally occurring.
Yeah, it's really sad. I mean, everything's been gone down to the seed level and been what would you call that? Bioengineered, yeah. So it's really sad when you think about it. So I think that you try to get as close to it as you can. And that's why you go to, like, the Amish or the Old German Brethren or a farmer's market to get as close to it as you can.
Yeah, and I think that should be a goal for most people, because it is the recipes and using the right food, but also sourcing it from the right place.
Right.
Both of those are important, and you have to have both.
Which is it's just a statement to our times that it used to be you could go down to the grocery store and get fresh fruit, and fresh vegetables, and now you have to really, go on a finder's mission to find these things. It takes effort and time, and it says something that you have to do that.
Takes effort, takes time, just like we talked about earlier, and where's your health fall in your priority line? Are you willing to make it a priority?
Yeah. And I think, you guys have heard us long enough that, when you either are going to spend the time and the money now, or you're going to spend the time and the money later. And you're going to be much more appreciative that the time and the effort you put into your health now than if you wait to you have poor health and then you're paying to take care of that poor health.
Absolutely. You have any other recipes on your list there, Matt?
The only other one, we kind of covered. I mean, that was my one of the things I put on my Greek yogurt is Midwest honey.
Yeah. Always make sure if you have honey that it's locally sourced.
Yeah,
that's important.
And I can, as far as I've been starting to eat more fish, and I usually do just a little bit of thyme. Sometimes I'll put some rosemary on that, but I do unbreaded and tilapia, or I'm not a big salmon guy. But, you speak on what you eat, and I've been trying to add more fat into my diet. But yeah, I mean, for me, it's red meat, chicken, eggs, mango, and Greek yogurt. That's what I eat every single day.
Yeah.
And so women, you don't want to come to me for your recipes.
Talk to me a little bit about eggs, because I know you eat a lot of eggs.
Yeah.
I eat a lot of eggs too. And there are a lot of different ways to cook and prepare eggs. Mm-hmm. Yet I also see a lot of people who, they want an alternative for a breakfast option because they say they're getting tired of eggs. One of the ways I've found to help not get as tired of eggs is to mix it up and change up how you're cooking them. Do you ever change up how you're cooking your eggs, or do you always just cook them the exact same?
Well, I like poached eggs. Mm-hmm. That takes a little more prep and time. I've even tried it to where I open the yolk and I separate the yolk from the whites, and I put the yolk in boiling water and kind of cook that, and then it's kind of like, and then right when the outside is cooked, I scoop it out, and this is when I would take some sprouted bread and put butter on it and put that yolk on the top, and it just bleeds out onto the toast. That's good, but it takes prep and time. You know what I mean? It's like I want to like go. So, every once in a while when I'm kind of bored and have a little time, I'll kind of experiment with eggs. I have found something out with myself, and I wanted to see if so I can eat 6 to 8 scrambled eggs at a sitting. But if I sit and eat 2 over easy eggs, or maybe 3, I'm full. Don't you find? I find that very strange, and it's happened enough now to where I don't want to eat any more, over easy eggs because I can't eat as many. But if I scramble them, I can eat the whole damn thing. It's really bizarre. I don't know what it is. It's like me cooking up 6. If I were to cook up 6 over easy eggs, I probably couldn't eat them all. But if I know it makes no sense. It's the same matter. It's still the same matter. But it's really bizarre. And I've noticed that something about me is that, like, if I want to get the 6 to 8 eggs down, I have to scramble them up, put some butter on them, a little sea salt or kosher salt, and then go. And they're fantastic. I put kosher salt in cracked pepper in my eggs. And then I just, once I got them all cooked up, I don't let them get too hard. I have a very particular way to cook my scrambled eggs. I mean, like, I keep it at a low heat, and I have a rubber spatula that I'm constantly moving them, so they never get. I don't like when they get fried or burnt. And they're constantly. So mine are like they're not wet when they're done, but they're very moist.
I think not overcooking eggs is really important for not getting tired of them.
Yes.
Overcooked eggs, yeah, they're not that good.
No.
But to speak to your question about the scrambled eggs versus easy eggs, I haven't personally found that. I mean, it's definitely a different experience eating the eggs, whether it's scrambled, whether it's poached, whether it's over easy, even boiled. You can eat eggs in an omelet. I mean, there are so many different ways to eat them, and they all taste a little different and are a little different experience. And so that's kind of what I found is if you are getting tired of eggs, mix it up.
Yeah.
Start cooking them differently.
Well, a lot of times we have this little hard-boiled cooker.
Yeah, the egg cooker?
Yeah.
Oh, I love that thing.
And you can do like 6 or 8 at a time, and you just let it steam them up. It starts beeping when it's done. You pull them out and then put another set in, and then, so you have hard-boiled eggs for the week.
Yeah, it's very quick, and it makes it not near as time-consuming.
Yes.
Yeah, we use that all the time. And that's good for prepping eggs, too. You talked about not having the time. If you don't have time to sit down there and cook eggs, but you want to have eggs or you want a snack or something, cooking them ahead of time and storing them in the fridge, and they keep. They keep for a while.
Yeah.
Especially if you don't peel them. Go ahead and leave the shell on and put them in the fridge, and they'll keep for a few days and still be fantastic whenever you go to peel them.
It's funny. I'm thinking about we're 2 males here talking about recipes, and I'm sure all the women are out there thinking, I got all these great recipes for you guys.
Share them with us. We'd love to hear them. We'd love to try them out.
Please send them to me. But remember, I'm at the stove for maybe 10 or 15 minutes, and I'm gone. So
no, I'd love to try them out. And it'd be good to get. I mean, we talked a little bit about it with Jamie, and that's kind of what prompted this for me. But it'd be good to have some people on the podcast that do have some great recipe ideas and share those with our listeners. Because I know that's something from training people. You obviously talk nutrition. We talk nutrition with our trainees all the time, but that comes up a lot is recipes.
It does.
What to eat.
And I probably am more I'd say kind of flippant about it, where I'm like, listen, because the way I view it, my recipes are strictly to get me to an end. That's it. My recipes are to get me to nutrition, not for the experience. And that's me, So that's not the way most people are wired.
Well, and that is very true, right? It can be done very simply, very easily, right? You have your goal. It's formulaic, right? You have your goal. Here's the exact formula of what I need to follow in order to get towards my goal. This is what I'm going to do.
Right.
But I found it also can be done in a very enjoyable way as well.
Yeah.
You can eat very healthy, and maybe it's not every meal, right? Maybe you're not wanting to take the time to sit down and do some of these things for every meal, but in order to keep it from being boring, in order to not get tired of it, in order to continue on this journey and continue on this path and not let your goals be derailed, if you need some options, if you need to change it up, do it. Don't let the monotony of eating the same boring things over and over be what gets you off your path and off your goals.
Yeah, I definitely don't have the same makeup as most people, because I can eat the same thing for years in a row.
And I'm the same way.
And most people, I feel like I'm on an island when I talk like that. But I do have about 6 recipes that I was cooking during the pandemic that all took like an hour and a half to do. And I'm a perfectionist, and so they tasted fantastic, because I just meal prepped for like an hour and then the actual cooking time. But it was just, when you're trying to get to an end goal, you can't cook like that. So,
well, and there are extremes. Think about Dr. Sean Baker, who you've talked about before, and that dude eats red meat exclusively for decades.
Yeah.
Right. But, I don't want to ever make people think that's the only way. He has shown that it's very effective and is very healthy.
Yeah.
But it's not the only way. And
well, I mean, the ultimate goal is to reach live a healthy lifestyle, right? And so if you need variety to do that, that has to be included.
Absolutely. So, if you guys have any further questions about how to get some variety into your diet, we'd be happy to answer them. We hope that this helped you guys a little bit in terms of getting some more variety and trying some different things. And I think Matt said it best in the middle of the podcast. We didn't really stop to talk about it, but experiment, right? Try some things. You never know what you're going to find, what you're going to figure out.
Right.
Because you're not going to find it at the grocery store. Right.
Correct.
You're going to have to do a little of your own digging, look up some stuff, try some recipes. Eventually you find something you like and you find something you can throw into your routine. And the more recipes that you find, my wife has she got a recipe box. And every time she finds a new recipe through her experimentation that we like, sometimes like, man, this is really good. You got to put that in the recipe box, right?
Yeah,
and it goes in the recipe box. And then over time, you kind of build up a variety of things that you can go to and make and eat, so that you're not eating the same thing all the time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's the mindset, really, let me back up. It's a lifestyle to live in a way that you have to seek out your food.
And it doesn't happen overnight either.
No, it doesn't.
It's a process.
So be patient with yourself. I just posted something the other day that I believe is true. Patience is power. And if you're patient with your things that are happening in your life, and also have patience with yourself, then you're going to get where you need to be. So do it the right way, for the right reasons, at the right time.
Yep, the tortoise and the hare, right? Who won the race?
That's right.
We'll let you guys think on that. All right, well, thanks for listening. This is our 16th episode of Loading the Bar podcast. We're really excited to be bringing some great knowledge to you guys. As always, let us know if you have any questions, and if not, we'll be back here next week with some more great content for you.
Take care, guys.
Hey, look at you. You've completed another milestone by finishing this episode of Loading the Bar. Your future self thanks you profusely. Loading the Bar is podcasted from Lee Summit, Missouri. Email us at cpt.kansascity@gmail.com. Forge ahead and share your progress, and we'll see you back here for another episode of Loading the Bar.